Let's bring in now Republican Congressman Jeff Denham of California. Congressman, thanks so much for being with us. We saw yesterday Paul Ryan and Mark Meadows exchanging words on immigration. You've been concerned about how the goalposts keep moving on an immigration reform bill that could put this mess behind us. Tell us about it.
Yeah, certainly disappointing to be in continuous negotiations week after week, and every time you come back, not only are the members of the Freedom Caucus changing, but the goalposts change as well. So we would agree to a number of different issues. They'd bring new issues out. We'd agree to those. I mean, we have a very conservative bill that still addresses the things that we were pushing for. 1.8 million protected Dreamers from day one and strong border security. But even last night, you know, there's a lot of traits and characteristics that I admire about the Freedom Caucus sticking together, but honesty is just not one of them. And so last night, again, the dust-up with the Speaker on the floor was about changing, once again, their commitment to the overall strategy of bringing these bills to the floor,
right,
so that they can't undermine this discharge petition.
So let's get specific. What are they being, what's the Freedom Caucus being dishonest on? Give me an example of, let's say, a policy that they've brought to the table to move the goalposts.
Oh, a number of different policies, but the policy issues we agreed to. So that is of less concern, but because there's such a trust factor, going out of the meetings on the final night when they couldn't even agree whether or not they would take down the rule. I mean, you served in Congress. You know, when you start getting into these parliamentary procedures, you're either working together or you're not.
Right.
And so we'd agreed to bring up a rule and then a rule and then a bill and a bill, so you couldn't separate or take down the other members' issue. Well, not only have they gone back on that, but now you'll see different procedures coming up today. And then last night, in the middle of the night, they dropped in a couple of amendments to the Goodlatte bill to make it more difficult on the House floor today.
So I'm curious, do you think their goal is to simply kill any immigration reform bills?
I think certainly by some. You know, there are some that feel the Goodlatte bill is amnesty. So, yeah, there's certainly some division within the Freedom Caucus, but that's also creating some challenges within the Republican caucus overall.
Let me ask you about the possibility of getting a fix to what we've been seeing over the past 20 days on the border. You've said that it's just it's unsustainable, and the president actually finally understood that last night. I'm curious, is Congress going to be able to move forward, and you're going to be able to change legislation so 20 days from now we aren't at the same position where children, babies, toddlers, infants have to be separated from their parents?
And still are.
Yes, obviously this is an ongoing problem from the previous two presidents. We've always had unaccompanied minors come across. We've always had these challenges with huge numbers coming over in the summer. We obviously have a big economy right now where more jobs here provide better opportunity and more of an attraction for people to come here. But what we haven't seen is these kids separated from their parents. That should never happen. I've asked Homeland Security and Health and Human Services for a list of show us where these kids are, because it is a different scenario. While you've put unaccompanied minors on planes in the past, while you've shipped them across the country, even under the Obama administration, you've never pulled them away from parents. And so that is a big challenge. It's a big question. We want to know where those kids are. But ultimately, changing this policy, I think that this is our opportunity. I don't think either party has been as close as we are today. But I'm not afraid or ashamed of working with the other party either. I think the best solution becomes an American solution where you have Republicans and Democrats working together in a bipartisan fashion. We're not there yet, but certainly we had a great deal of support on the discharge petition, and we're reserving every parliamentary option to continue to push this issue.
Congressman, it's Richard Haass. You segued to the point I was going to raise. The only way to beat a blocking minority like the Freedom Caucus is to make them irrelevant. So why not have a serious conversation with the Democrats, with moderate Democrats, and put together a working majority that essentially makes this minority irrelevant?
Yeah, and I believe we were working in that direction, working with our Democrat colleagues. Obviously, as you've seen with the discharge petition, two parties working together to not bring up a Democrat bill or a liberal bill, but to actually have a full debate on 4 different pieces of legislation in front of the American public. If it's really a debate about ideas, why would you be afraid to take that in front of the American public? And so, we're going to see 2 bills today, but if those fail, I think that there's going to be greater opportunity for both parties to work together and not allow the Freedom Caucus to hijack the agenda.
Congressman, it's Willie Geist. It's good to see you this morning. As you know, the president's executive order does nothing to address the more than 2,300 kids who are currently sitting in detention separated from their families. Yesterday, initially, HHS says this executive order does not grandfather in those existing cases. Then they came out later and said we don't have any guidance on it, actually. So they sort of walked back that comment. The big question for us this morning and for a lot of people across the country is what is going to happen to those 2,300 kids?
Well, certainly this is not new policy. Again, once this went under the Department of Justice, once the kids were separated from their parents, they were treated as unaccompanied minors, which we've had thousands every single year. Again,
right.
the challenge is notifying the parents and reuniting the parents later. Unaccompanied minors, for years we've been finding ways to not only find foster homes,
right.
But more importantly to unite them with relatives while they're waiting due process.
Congressman, do you have any sense for what will happen to these specific 2,300 kids? And if you don't, what should happen with them?
Well, I had ICE and Border Patrol in my office yesterday. We were having a discussion about this. They're able to do DNA checks within an hour. So they're able to identify these kids. And I would expect if HHS has accurate lists, they're able to reunite. But I don't think that we should go through extreme situations like Democrats were proposing last night, that we start putting ankle bracelets on these kids while they're awaiting due process. I mean, some of these kids are going to go to our schools to put a target on these kids back by putting an ankle bracelet on them to monitor them, I think is the wrong proposal as well.
All right, Congressman Jeff Denham, thank you so much for being with us. We greatly appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.
Time magazine juxtaposes the most powerful man in the world with a terrified 2-year-old. We'll go inside the new issue and that powerful picture on the front cover. We also want to mention that Know Your Value has posted the names of several organizations that are accepting donations to secure urgent legal and social services for thousands of migrant children separated from their parents. It's part of the wider mission at Know Your Value to encourage action and to help people find their voice and use it especially, and most especially the voiceless. On Tuesday, we welcomed our newest contributors, Olympic gold medalists Jocelyn Lamoureux Davidson and Monique Lamoureux Miranda. They'll be taking part in Comcast's corporate values initiatives, helping provide opportunities to low-income Americans, education and mentorship for young people, and a commitment to diversity and inclusion, including gender equity. You can find much more information at knowyourvalue.com. We'll be right back.
Thanks for checking out MSNBC on YouTube, and make sure you subscribe to stay up to date on the day's biggest stories. And you can click on any of the videos around us to watch more from Morning Joe and MSNBC. Thanks so much for watching.